What's up guys, welcome back to another video. Today we are working on the Brixton. The new riding season has started, the weather is clearing up and heating up, so people want to ride their motorcycle. As some people might know, this was my very first bike, the bike that kicked off this channel, but this is not my bike now. As you all know, I ride a Honda CBR 600RR. So I sold this bike to my mom and she rides it now. She doesn't ride it consistently like I did, and the maintenance is also a little bit sketchy. So to get her ready for the riding season, I'm gonna help her out. There are some issues with this bike. The back wheel isn't rotating as freely as it should. We're gonna do an oil change. We're gonna check the battery if it still has enough voltage, and if the bike is charging the battery. We're gonna do a brake fluid flush, not a completely flush, but like a mediocre flush that everyone can do, because you have to change your brake fluid every 2 years, depending on how you ride. If you ride on the track or you ride really hard for a very long time, you might change your brake fluid every single year. Also, we need to do a modification to the handlebars. We need to shorten them, but we'll see if we get there. What we're first gonna do is make the bike rideable. What I'm first gonna do, I'm gonna pull off the covers from the airbox and where the battery sits. I'm gonna start the bike to heat up the oil a little bit, like 5 minutes or whatever, so the oil isn't that thick, because it's still a little bit cold. So let's get right into it. Let's have some fun. So, quick little update on the Brixton. We did a oil change. We drained the old oil, we put new oil in it. Now we're not ready with the oil change. When you put new oil in, you need to start the bike for like 5 minutes to get the oil all pumped in there. Wait a little bit and then you have the correct level, and then you can fill it up. Because the oil in the pump is gone. Where the filter is, there's not a lot of oil in there. It still needs to bleed a little bit, or whatever you want to call it. Took the battery out for charging. It is charging right now. I already measured it and it's like 12.5 volts right now, so we're heading in the right direction. Also, I cleaned up the chain a little bit, just used WD-40 with a rag. I cleaned the whole bike like a month ago, so the chain is pretty clean, but you still need to run it over with WD-40. Next up, I'm gonna do the brakes. I'm gonna flush the back brake system, because you know the back brake is a little bit stuck, so we're gonna have to get that focus on on there, but we need to flush the fluid in there because it's like 4 or 5 years old and you need to flush the system like every 2 years. So been slacking on that, so I'm gonna do that now. Maybe that is gonna solve the issue of the back brake still locking up despite the efforts that we done in the past. But before we want to start on the brake system, I want to check the oil again. Now this is the oil that came out of the Brixton. It's somewhat black, but yeah, that is all pretty normal. Don't know what the mileage are from the last oil change I did, but it wouldn't be that high. It's certainly not 3,000 kilometers. But I want to check something because I have not really a suspicion of something, but something could be improved on this oil system. Now, as you know, everything is lubricated with this oil. Crank, the gears, everything. So what can happen? Small metal shavings could come off of the gears and get into your oil. What cars do is have a magnetic drain plug. When the oil is all pumped over the engine, the magnetic drain plug pulls the metal pieces to itself and it sticks there. And when you do an oil change, you can clean it off and you can make sure your engine is metal free. Now there's no magnetic drain plug on the Brixton. I don't know why they didn't do that. It's like a standard thing and it doesn't cost that much, a little magnet on a drain plug. But I want to check this oil. Now how I'm gonna do that, I have here a small but powerful magnet. I'm gonna go around into the oil and see if I can catch some particles. I had to make sure my magnet is clean so I don't have any false readings. Don't know if I'm gonna catch a lot of stuff. It's a very powerful magnet. So yeah, just give it a little swirl. Now let's look at the magnet. Right here on the top there's a little bit of metal. Not too concerning, but I still want a magnetic drain plug. So in the future we're gonna fix that. We're gonna put a magnetic drain plug on the bike. After 3,000 kilometers there's a lot of oil going past that drain plug and it will catch a lot more stuff. But as it looks right now in this test, it looks pretty normal. Okay, we flushed the brake fluid. Now I discovered a big problem and I want to address this very thoroughly because this is very dangerous. As you saw, I pulled off the brake pedal and it was so hard to do, it was actually stuck on there. So what does this mean? If the pedal is stuck and the spring cannot pull it back, this means your back brake and front brake, because this is a combined system, will not completely open. This means your back wheel or your front wheel will be seized up. Now this can roll into some other problems. Your brake caliper will heat up and it will get stuck and you will get wear and tear on your disc brake, and you don't want that because you're putting extended wear on your disc brakes and your brake pads, and that's not good at all. So the reason that I started working on this bike was because of the back wheel completely stuck. In my previous video you saw that me and the shade had to push together to get the bike rolling. The back wheel was totally stuck. Look at it now when I removed the pedal, the stock pedal. Look at this. Even with my pinky, I can move the back wheel. So this is gonna solve the problem. The problem wasn't the brake caliper, it wasn't the fluid, but it's still useful to do the fluid. It was the pedal. So if you are owning a Brixton, go check your brake pedal. If it's stuck, you have to clean it out, guys. It is so dangerous and you will get wear and tear on your disc brakes. I can feel it on this disc brake. It is some extended wear and tear, not to the point that I'm gonna have to replace it, but yeah. The brake pads still look good, so I'm pretty happy that I discovered this beforehand than after. Now to check if your brake is stuck or not completely opening, just grab it with 2 hands and you should feel it wiggle. Not too much, but not too little. You have to feel that it is loose. Check your tire. It should be running fairly smoothly, even with the chain running around. This is perfect. Now, if your brakes are stuck, you have to pull everything off here. I didn't film it that well, so I'm gonna explain it right now. When you put it on, it's practically the same process, just reverse it. So first of all, you need to clean everything. Get yourself a little bit of sanding paper and rub it on the shaft, just like this. So you get a clean surface. Get some brake cleaner and wipe it dry. Now to reinstall it, I'm gonna put on a little bit of copper grease right on the shaft, just to prevent it from sticking again. It will stick in the future, but not as badly as before. Put on your brake pedal and look how easily that moves compared to when I had to pull it off. Now I can just slide it off, put this thing back in here, reinstall this pin. Now let's put that bolt back in there. So the bolt, a washer, and just for good measure, I'm gonna put a drop of medium strength Loctite on it, just to make sure that this bolt doesn't come loose when riding, or else there will be bigger problems than a stuck brake. Snug it down, wipe off the excess copper grease. Now let's reapply this spring. And now your brake pedal should return just like this, very smoothly. To make sure, rotate the tire and see if it frees up again. So now the back brake should be all fine again. I'm pretty happy that it was just that. I'm not gonna clean up the caliper because it looks pretty smooth. So if you have a Brixton, check this because it's the beginning of the season. You might not think about it. And if your brakes are gonna get stuck, yeah, not a fun time at all. So now I'm gonna reinstall the battery. It's not completely charged, but it has a bigger charge than before. I checked it, it's about 13.05 volts right now, well enough to start the bike. So we're gonna put the battery back in, start the bike, get the fluids all where they need to be, pump out the tires and maybe take it for a small test ride. So I just did a test ride with the Brixton and it performs absolutely perfectly. There is a good brake response and the brakes free up immediately. You can get on the throttle right away. No hesitation. So I think we might have fixed the brake problem. Of course, with the new engine oil, the chain clean, the battery charged, it's absolutely perfect right now, ready for another season. I also tensioned up the chain because there was a little bit too much slack in there. Now it's all good for riding. So the next thing that I'm gonna do is modify the handlebars, because the owner of the bike asked me if we could change the handlebars. I said, yes, you could, but what style did you want? The owner wasn't really sure what they wanted. We started looking at the bike and we realized that the handlebars are pretty big. Now for me, because I have wider shoulders than the person who is riding this bike right now, it is absolutely perfect. As you can see, my arms are almost straight but not at a weird angle. With the owner who's riding the bike right now, the handlebar is a little bit too big and it's awkward to turn. So I started looking at the bike and I saw that I have a little bit of space right here where the controls could slide into. That means I'm gonna have to cut off the ends of the handlebar to make it more narrower. So if you're a girl or a guy and you're sitting awkward on the Brixton, this is something that you can do. So what I'm first gonna do, I'm gonna remove the controls from either side. I'm gonna leave the mirrors because that is a fixed point. Then I'm gonna measure from the levers to the end, see what measurements I got there, slide the levers over, measure it again, see what the difference is, and that is what I can cut away. I got a tube cutter, but I don't know how thick this tube is or if I will be able to cut it, but I can still use the angle grinder, no biggie. So just for comparison, we're gonna measure what the distance is right now, and it's 56.8. So I'm just gonna get into it and hopefully it turns out good. So the handlebars are back together. I see a little bit of a difference, but when I sit on the bike, it doesn't really matter to me. Now we didn't cut off a lot, like 4.5 centimeters. So it is a change, but will the change be big enough for the person to notice it? I mean, they look a little bit narrower, a little bit more aggressive, but we will see when the person rides this bike and they tell it's good or if it's not. Then we're gonna have to look for a new set of handlebars. So I'm gonna let the owner ride it for a couple of months, and maybe in the summertime I have a verdict on it's okay, it's not okay, it has to be different. We will see. As you saw, you need to drill holes for the controls to make them lock in. So that is a little bit of a pain. A lot of measuring, a lot of guessing, and yeah, I did it. It worked. That is what we got to do. So that is gonna be it for this video, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave a like and a comment down below. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and on Instagram. And if you're not already subscribed yet, subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate it. And I will see you in the next one.